Hey everyone, this is Mike, and today we arrived at the final fight, E8 Savage aka Shiva. Now for this one I kinda cheated, so to speak, as this technically wasn't really my first run, because a few days before this, before we did our weeklies, we actually tried to optimize Shiva a little bit, but most of that was pretty much going to be about the first phase. We didn't really see the second phase all that much, and when we did see the second phase, we never actually got Icelit Dragonsong, because that's where I wiped the group, because I didn't know how to handle the mechanic myself, like with the middle tower and that kind of stuff. As a tank, however, this fight is incredibly fun, but it is of course a very loaded fight when it comes down to mechanics, and it's not just tank mechanics either. Even if you're doing it as a DPS, there's a lot of stuff for you to do as well. It's just that as a tank, you're going to be paying attention to a couple of different mechanics, and that will just make you do some stuff a little bit different. First one is going to be this one here, actually. Now, she did Driving Frost first, meaning that Biting Frost is going to be second, and because of the way how we handled it in our normal runs at least, because with our optimization runs we're actually doing this mechanic a little bit different, the Diamond Frost that is, I'm actually going to be pointing the boss away from the other people, meaning that I'm technically the only one that has to care about the first mechanic that she does, because I'm just going to make it easy for the rest of the group. The reason why we do it differently in our optimized runs is because we do Diamond Frost 100% different, so that we can actually keep melee uptime here, which is something that we cannot really do right now because we get knocked away. So here, as you can see, I'm just pointing her away, so that the Biting Frost is basically going to be missing the whole party if they just stack behind. Over here, our Paladin is also going to provoke just for a second so that he can invuln the double slap with his Hallowed Ground. And the reason for that is so that I can keep my Superbolite for the second phase. Now, we used to do this with a warrior, like the tank that I'm replacing was a warrior, and he would normally use his Home Gang here. And that works because Home Gang is on a short enough cooldown for it to be back up for the second phase. However, Superbolite is not, and because of that, I can't use my Superbolite here, or I wouldn't be able to use it in the second phase, where I would want to use it otherwise. So that's why we do the quick swap with the Hallowed Ground, because Hallowed Ground we don't need until the final mechanic really, so that's why we don't necessarily lose anything from it. On the other hand, we actually gain the usage out of Hallowed Ground, and since Hallowed Ground also makes you completely immune, the healers don't even have to heal that up either, whereas with Superbolite they would need to use some healing. When it comes down to Light Rampant, it is exactly the same as you were to do it as a DPS, it's just that our starting position is on 1 when it comes down to the tanks for my group, but everything else just works out exactly the same. This is still the Ilias threat, as many people are calling it. Not great for melee uptime, pretty easy to execute though in my opinion. We are going to be doing the Ayatori's threat when it comes down to our optimized runs, which hopefully I'll be able to show you in the future as well. Again, for the optimized runs that we were doing, we also do this mechanic a little bit different. When it comes down to our normal runs, we just keep her in the middle and then just do the dodge like normal, whereas when we do our optimized runs, we actually pull her towards a mirror if it is the side, because now we lose GCDs here, whereas otherwise if she's next to a mirror we can just keep attacking her whilst doing the same dodge that we do right here, but instead of dodging it in the middle, we dodge it on the edge of the arena. Now, in the ad phase you have a little bit more responsibility as a tank, together with a ranged physical, I guess you could say. Since I'm going to be on the right side, all the responsibility is on me. I do have a melee with me this time around, whereas when you see the optimized run, I actually don't have a melee, because I have double caster on my side. But basically, your 2 jobs that you have to do, well technically 3, but 2 main jobs: silencing the Earthen Ad and stunning the Aqueous. So right here, first thing that you're going to be doing, because, well, this is the right side, of course. If you're on the left side, it looks a little bit different. Not 100% sure what it looks like on the left side. But basically, if you're on the right, you go over to the Earthen first, you silence that, you jump over to the Aqueous, and then you stun it. Of course, if you have a melee, wait for the melee's stun to run out. Of course, here I do have a melee, so that's why my stun goes second. Otherwise, if you don't have a melee on your side, just stun it as soon as you can, to get that stun duration back up as soon as possible as well. This one is going to be my tether over here, so I'm just going to hit the electrics a bit, soften them up a bit, then go over and grab my tether, and then I'm going to move to the Aqueous, and again my stun is up, so I'm just going to stun it again to make sure it doesn't go into the middle. And then when the Earthen spawns, I'm going to be moving over immediately as well, so I can silence this Stone Skin one last time. Of course, if you're on the left side, you only have to silence once, because the 2 Earthens come too close together, and because of that you need a ranged physical DPS, so I believe the first silence goes to the tank usually, and the second silence goes to the ranged physical. So that's something that you'll have to like talk about with your partner, so to speak. Other than that, also kind of need to like say who is going to be attacking what and that kind of stuff to make sure that everything dies in time. And then we have a cool cutscene to enjoy. Second phase, when it came down to our optimization runs, we actually didn't change a whole lot. There were, I believe, 2 main mechanics that we changed. I think, was it even 2? Yeah, technically 2 mechanics that we changed. But they didn't really impact us all that much, except for the last one. The final mechanic is something that helped us out quite a bit. But other than that, there wasn't really all that much that we could do to gain extra uptime. We did do the uptime knockback mirrors, but that is something that we've been doing during our weekly runs quite a bit as well. And I'll also tell you how to do that one when we get there as well, to like see the tell of when you need to use your knockback immunity and that kind of stuff. Because it's actually a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. I actually thought that the timing would be a lot stricter, but once you know the tell of when you need to use your knockback immunity, it's actually not that bad at all. So here we're going to be sharing our Ak Morns. Now the Morn Afara is coming after this. I am going to be invulning with my Superbolite, and this is the reason why we have our Paladin take the first like Tank Buster with his Hallowed Ground, because if I were to use Superbolite for the Tank Buster, I wouldn't have it up here. I would still be on like 40 seconds or something like that. So that is why we have our Paladin take the first one with Hallowed Ground. Now this mechanic we are going to be royally failing, and then of course going to be using our like beloved healer LB3, because somebody called out the wrong spot. We should have gone to 3 here, but somebody called 1, and I was like, wait, that's not correct. But of course the thing locks in really quickly, and that is why pretty much everybody is going to be dying here. Of course we do have one of our healers alive, so they can just resurrect us with our healer LB3. So yeah, that's what kind of happened there. Basically somebody just called out the wrong spot, and that is why most people died there. When it comes down to Worm's Lament, you are of course in the different group. As a DPS you're always taking the puddles that are left behind. As a tank you are the one popping the head, as we like to call it. Now, when it comes down to grabbing stuff that runs around in Final Fantasy, it's actually incredibly bad. And right there it kind of worked out fine for me, because it like came down its initial descent, so to speak. But later on, when we get Worm's Lament 2, is they're going to be seeing that I actually have to be running around a little bit. Now, if you don't know how this works in Final Fantasy, basically the server is always a little bit ahead of what you can see. And you can kind of like throw this at server ticks, if you want to call it like that. Which is a really annoying thing, by the way. But it works like this for all of the things. Like for example, if you've ever tanked Ultima Weapon with the orbs in the final phase, like during Annihilation, then you'll basically have this problem as well. So whenever you want to grab something that is rotating around or something like that, you need to actually be slightly in front of it. So technically, if you want to pop the head, you need to make sure that you're kind of like on the front of the head to make sure that it will explode. Double slap, use some cooldowns for this. This hurts quite a bit. Now, very important, don't use all your cooldowns on this, because you're going to need cooldowns for the mechanic that's gonna happen right afterwards. I'm moving really late here, because I wasn't really sure what was going to happen here, and then I moved a little bit too soon here, so I was immediately calling out, keep moving, because otherwise they were going to get hit. And as you can see, our Astrologian got hit by one of them. Of course you can survive one, so it wasn't the end of the world, but if I hadn't called keep moving, then she probably would have died there. Then knockback mirrors, we use uptime for this, so we just basically split into the same groups that we used for the at phase. And then we just use our knockback invulns to make sure that we don't get knocked off. Now, as soon as she turns around here, right there, when she turns to attack the tank, that is where you want to be using your knockback invulns to make sure that you don't get yeeted off the arena, basically. So that's kind of like the tell of the timing of when you want to be using it. Here we're going to be pulling Shiva towards the middle, so that we can face her immediately towards the blue mirror, which is going to make the next mechanic incredibly easy for us. So as you can see, our tank is going to be pulling her next to the blue mirror. That way you can just look outside here and you won't get hit, and then you can immediately run back in and face where the blue mirror was, and you don't even have to care about this next mechanic at all. Now, if this was real and we had to run towards the edge of the arena, we could also look directly middle, because she is like on that axis towards the middle. We actually don't look into the red mirrors, and we can just totally keep our uptime that way as well, which is incredibly fun. So we do this, we bring her back to the middle for the, I believe, the double Akrais, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's the double Act-Rise here. This one we still do the old-fashioned way. The previous Act-Rise we actually changed a little bit so that our melee could keep his positionals going. But this one we still do the normal way because we didn't really find a good way to do this otherwise. And then we just split into our Akmon groups left and right. And then this Morna Fada is going to be coming, we just share with the whole group. If we would wanted to use another invuln on this, I don't think we would have enough, to be honest. I don't think Hallowed Ground is even up at this point. I'm actually not quite sure how far it is into the fight, but then again, if you used your Hallowed Ground on this, if it was up in the first place, you wouldn't be able to use it on the final phase, which is kind of shitty as well. Then Ice-Lit Dragon Song. This is relatively simple as a tank. There is one major mechanic that you have to pay attention to, and is whether or not it is true or false when it comes down to the tank share. If it is true, you share. If it is false, you need to stay away from each other. Also, as a Gunbreaker, a really good thing you can do is pop your cooldowns before the freeze debuff activates, because of course you're gonna get frozen here, so that you don't get knocked back by Draconic Strike, and that makes it so that you can run into the middle really quickly. But it also makes it so that you don't really have much time for you to be popping your off-global cooldowns. Now, since I died, my burst phase is a little bit later than usual, but normally my burst phase would be happening right before I get frozen, so that is why you should pop your cooldowns a little bit before, basically like 2-3 seconds before you get frozen. Pop your cooldowns so that you can pop your third one right as you run into the middle. As soon as you get unfrozen, so to speak, run into that middle tower, because otherwise that thing will explode. And then if it's share, just run into the middle of the tower. If it is fake, thus needing to be away from each other, just try to be like as far on the outside of the tower as possible, so that you don't hit each other. Because of course, if you hit each other, you're going to be dying, both of you, and that's not necessarily such a good thing. Here we just stack up, fly to the other side of the arena. This mechanic we also optimized when it came down to our optimization run, so that we can gain like 2 GCDs here or something like that. Which is going to be quite useful as well, because that means that we can just use our potions immediately as well. Because normally my No Mercy would be up a little bit sooner here as well. Then Last Burns Lament, of course, as a tank / healer, you are in the first group. As a tank, I believe you always get the orange one. I'm not entirely sure, but I think you do always get the orange one. And you'll see that I am here going to be running after the head a little bit. So as you can see, I need to be running towards the front of the head to make sure that it explodes. When it comes down to the Morn Afa, also Vogue as the cost bar is going on, because otherwise your co-tank might die. He died here because I believe the head exploded again. I'm not quite sure what went on there. But basically, just try to be in front of the head to try and pop it, and then during the cast of Morn Afa, provoke during that. Of course, if you would have seen a second round, I would be the second one to invuln the Morn Afa, the second one that is, and then the third one we would share with the whole group. So that's going to be Shiva Savage. If you have any more questions about it, feel free to leave it in the comments down below. We just finished our optimization runs of Shiva as well. We just need to basically get a clean run of it, and then you'll probably see that on the channel sometime next week as well. Because we're done with Alexander Ultimate now, so we have an extra time, like an extra day in the week that we can spend on our optimization runs as well. So we're basically going to be getting a clean run of that hopefully sometime next week, and then you can see that appear on the channel as well. And then I'll be talking about our new strats as well if people want to see that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's going to be it for me. I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank my Patreons for supporting me, and I'll see you in the next one.